terrible forest fire that took so many lives and has injured so many in Israel. So our thoughts are with them and their families, and we wish those who are injured a refuah shlema, a full recovery, and our sympathy goes to those families who have lost loved ones in this tragic fire. But now we turn to the Chanukiah. Should we like the shamash?
To join you tonight, and the one important thing I would like to thank you for, she's such a friendly Yiddish mama that we tend to call her Debbie, is that she shows us how 90% of life is showing up. It's important to be where people need you to be, and therefore I wanted to be here, even though I have my family obligations to do whatever, and I wanted to share this with you. I want to quote a very important Jewish individual that I learned from in my life, and that is my mother-in-law. And since she lives 10,000 miles away, she's never going to hear about this. This is not the curry favorite, but it happens to be true. If we look through the major stories of Jewish history, we find an interpretation of a sentence that we say on Passover, which is V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu, and that is which has stood by our ancestors and stood by us. My mother-in-law reminds me and my family every time we are together for Passover, like we were this year, that V'hi also means and she. Is another interpretation of the same word in Hebrew is and she. And she says, and she is the one that has stood by us for our ancestors and for us. And who is she? She is the Jewish heroine of every miracle that the Jews have celebrated. The one that inspired Moses' father to continue to build the Jewish people, and Moses was born and his sister saved him. And then we see all the stories in our history, like Purim, where if not for Queen Esther, we wouldn't be talking about it. We see the story of Hanukkah, where it was Yehudit who actually slew the general that threatened the Jewish people and ended their dilemma and brought them victory. So she always says, why don't we here on Passover, especially since we know that the faith of the Jewish women, which are the core of the Jewish people, why don't we pay homage to them? She says, I think this sentence is for us. This is what she tells us on Passover. So I want to say also that Debbie is one of those Jewish women that is very strongly in favor of the community, strongly supportive of a broad range of people within the community. And it's very important when you're supporting the Jewish community to understand that within the Jewish community you're always going to find people who think like you do. And then you're going to find people who think otherwise. But you have to remember that the menorah in the temple reached out from the same base in two different directions. But we were all part of the same foundation. And then when the candles were lit, each one pointed towards the middle. We are taught in the Talmud that the middle flame stood straight while the side flames pointed to it. To teach us that even if we have different backgrounds and we have different opinions, we come from the same base and we have to point to the same place. Now that middle flame pointed upwards. We are told that that's the connection with divinity. Because you can only connect to the divine if you're willing to understand and point to people who are different than you but come from the same place. So I think you've played a very big role, Debbie, in doing that, in bringing people together. It doesn't hurt that she has the most Chabad centers of any member of Congress anywhere, even in Florida. Maybe Deutsch is competing with you right now, right? But that South Florida is pretty heavy. You have a